Sorry about that, folks. I don't know what happened. It looks like we share an account, so it looks like somebody else tried to start a meeting at the same time. So I'm trying to figure out who that might have been.
My sister accidentally connected with my name. It kicked me off.
Oh no, I don't think that's what it was. We share a license, so I wonder if somebody just
Or she signed on to the same Wi-Fi because we bought a Wi-Fi extender, and I use Dad's. We have the original in the living room for the living room Xbox, and now that I have my Xbox, we were only.
Aren't you talking about the one in between the rooms?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
So then
about.
I signed in inside Mom's room.
Yeah, you signed in on the 2G.
Yeah.
Mine's the 5G.
fancy, moving all up in the world. AC, Wi-Fi extender.
I finally got my room clean, so I'm able to have my own Xbox too.
And a clean room and an Xbox. My goodness.
Yes.
I get a room underneath his bed.
Wait, what?
He's got a huge bunk bed, so I have my own room underneath it.
Oh, like is your bed lofted, Bryden?
No, my bed, it has a desk under it. So
Yeah,
basically took the shelves under the desk out and basically put a bed under there and put all of our toys under there.
nice.
So now I figured out who actually kept the room dirty. Because when I clean our room now, I just shove everything that's Micah into her room to clean because that's what Dad said to do. And like it's clean in little under like 5 seconds after I put everything in there.
Oh, that's how my bed in college was. We called it lofted. And so I had a desk and my like little wardrobe closet was underneath my bed that was raised up.
Yeah. My next bed, when we get our extension done, it's going to be a bed that turns into a couch too. So during the day, I can conserve room because my room's really small.
Bryden, Mama and Daddy said you only get a new bed if I take your bed. No guarantees I'm going to take it.
Well, you already said you were. So anyways, they said they were still going to give me a new bed.
That was the...
How was your Mexican pizza, Micah?
Good.
Good. What about everyone else's that was in the cooking class? How'd it turn out?
Hello. Good.
Good. Nice. Did you keep the black beans on it?
Yes. Yeah.
I love black beans.
Old Indian arrowhead.
It is, but do you know from which era, which time period? And I'm giving you a hard time because the only reason I know is because the archaeologists told me what it is.
It was from a
earlier
long
period.
time ago.
It's a what?
It was from over 100 years ago.
Oh, yes, it is. This is a Folsom Point. It's a very famous point that was discovered by an African-American cowboy in northeastern New Mexico, near Folsom, New Mexico, of all places. This particular projectile point was used by first Americans, Native Americans, from 9,500 to about 8,000 years ago. It's a pretty old projectile point, some of the oldest known in the U.S. So archaeologists, they study projectile points They may study other things like human remains, human bones, which can be fossilized. So those are fossils, but they're focusing on human civilizations. And then paleontology, they do dig in the dirt, but so do archaeologists. Pretty cool to get paid to dig in the dirt, isn't it? So invertebrates, things without backbones like shells and things, fossilize. And then vertebrates like dinosaurs. So are all dinosaurs fossils? Show of hands. All dinosaurs fossils? Okay, all fossils dinosaurs? No, as you'll see in a little bit, not all fossils are dinosaurs. Some fossils are other cool things like saber cats, dire wolves. So what I do is I study ancient life. I study vertebrate fossils, and that's what our focus will be on today. But we need to talk a little bit about other things before we talk about the cool fossils. But unlike me, it won't take you 20 years in a classroom to actually, before you go out and dig in the dirt. So I'm going to share another screen with you. There we go. That's coming up. The fun world of technology.
I don't
There
see
we
it.
go.
I don't see it just yet.
Yeah, the camera decided to take a nap, but I got it woken up. So here's some real life, and I'm gonna have to put on my old man glasses. Here's some real examples of what I just shared with you. Here's an arrowhead. It's not a Folsom point. It's a more recent projectile point. I don't know what time period. And here is a piece of pottery that was collected in New Mexico back in the 60s by my grandmother, which you shouldn't do back then, and you certainly cannot do today because of the laws that restrict that. But this is an ancient piece of pottery, probably about 1,200 years old. Here's a nice ammonite, which is an invertebrate. They're pretty common. They're found, they're polished, they're used in earrings, other jewelry. I've seen them in countertops. And then here's an example of a fossil mammal jaw right here. This is actually a replica of one that I found in Nevada. It's a new genus and species of a mustelid, or something that's related to badgers and otters. It's really a cool animal. I got to name that. So these are some real examples of what we're talking about, difference between archaeology and paleontology. So invertebrate paleontology, and I'm a vertebrate paleontologist. So yes, as I'm out walking, prospecting, looking for my mammal fossils, I do run across invertebrates, and I run across artifacts, and I report those to the appropriate professionals. And likewise, if they're out looking for their specimens, they'll report fossil vertebrates to me. So it's pretty cool. So I work a lot with the state archaeologists and other archaeologists. Okay, so now we're back to the PowerPoint. And we're going to talk just briefly about rocks, minerals, or fossils. And before you show me what you brought in, I want to tell you a little bit about rocks. Does everybody understand what a rock is? There's different types of rocks. There's rocks that are good for slingshots, rocks that are good for skipping on the water, but there are rocks that are made of a single mineral, multiple minerals. There are minerals that can be used for food, for salt. You guys are doing a nutrition class. Have you used any minerals in your nutrition class? How about sodium chloride? Table salt? Nobody? Oh, you guys.
Salt.
All right, well, thank you. Any other minerals that might have been used? Okay, what about in general day, just day-to-day life? It's kind of sweaty and muggy out lately. Anyone use baby powder? That's
Yeah,
talc.
isn't that made of talcum?
Yeah, it's exactly. Good job, Bo. And so what do rocks and minerals have to do with fossils? Well, fossils are mineralized remains of living organisms. Okay, so over time, those living organisms, they become mineralized. And so the minerals from around the soils and where these fossils are deposited are encompassed into these organic tissues, and they become hard like a rock. And there are specific rocks that we find fossils in. So do not memorize this chart, but generally there's a classification of rocks: sedimentary, igneous, that's fun to say, isn't it? Igneous, and then metamorphic. So sedimentary rocks are what I am really interested in, because that's where you find 99% of the fossils, sedimentary rocks. And so sedimentary rocks, there's a lot of examples. There's limestones, there's dolostone, evaporates, coal, chert. Chert is used for making projectile points. Anyways, this is where we find most of our fossils. Igneous rocks, you have intrusive or extrusive. Those are stories for other times. And then basalt, volcanic rock, you might be familiar with that. That's an example of an extrusive igneous rock. And then metamorphic. I'm going to show you an example of a maybe I won't say what I was going to say. I don't want to give away my answer to the question I'm going to pose you with. But metamorphic rocks, and there's foliated, non-foliated. So you got quartzite, marble. Anyone have marble countertops at home? Okay, so metamorphic, there's been a lot of heat and pressure over a long period of time that metamorph igneous rocks. I know, that was a lot to take in, and you only got part of this, a smidgen of the story, okay? But anyways, we're focusing on sedimentary rocks because that's where we find fossils. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing for now, and I want, if anyone's brought anything in with them, if you wanna share your rock or your mineral, that'd be great.
Blaine, I know you had one. Do you want to share yours?
Oh, cool.
Tell us about it.
Turn your mic on, Blaine.
I found it outside.
What is it?
Found this outside.
Outside of your house,
Yeah.
like on a gravel driveway? Did it come from a rock quarry far away, or do you think it actually came from the local area?
I think it came from like a local quarry.
Okay, so what is if you scratch the rock with your fingernail, can you make a mark on it?
No.
It's pretty hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you look at it real closely, is it smooth and kind of, can you see little striations in it, or is it just smooth?
It's kind of smooth and rough.
Okay, take your hand like this and put it up close to the camera so I can see it.
Blaine, was that on my front porch?
Yeah.
Okay, that could have came from anywhere on my travels. I picked it up probably and brought it home from somewhere I traveled.
It kind of looks like chert, but I'm only seeing one side.
Hold it up and turn it real slow in front of the camera, Blaine.
Yeah, it's looking like chert. Cool. Thank you very much for sharing that. So one side is kind of rough, and then the other sides have been chipped away or smooth. So that's the sedimentary rock. Very cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Robert, I know you had one.
Mine is a fish fossil. The fish fossil, and we got it from a fish carter cavern something.
Okay. Can you put it up close to the camera? Okay, lower it, lower it, lower. Whoa, there you go. Oh yeah, that's nice. That almost looks like a little coelacanth from the Green River Formation. Do you remember where you got the fish?
We got it at
It's from, yeah, Brian, can you tell him? Because I do not know what it's called.
a souvenir I got when we went to Carlsbad Cavern.
Okay.
It's my fish, and there was another one, but it split in half when we got it, and so I don't know where the other one went. I'm pretty sure I left it at my grandparents' house.
Okay, very good. And this is an example I want to share with you all. So in science, when we find something, we document all the data we can, where we found it, what the rocks look like, who was with us, and we're writing all this information down. And that's going to help us put together a story about that fossil. If you just go out and collect something, stick it in your pocket, and you wash it, and then you find it, put it on the mantle or something, and someone comes in like me, oh, that's cool, where'd you find that? Oh, out in Arizona somewhere. Really, where? Yeah, on the Navajo reservation and over by Tuba. Well, that's going to narrow it down a lot because of the age of the rock in that area, but we lost a lot of information. So if you guys think about it, if you find something cool, you might take note of where you found it, and at least the geographic location, because then I can go to a map and look exactly where you were and know what rock formations and stuff. So always document cool stuff so you'll know where it came from and you can share that with others. Cool. Anyone else?
Robbie, you had one to share.
All right. Well, as my caveat at the beginning of the presentation, I'm not an archaeologist, but I do find arrowheads, and by law, we're not supposed to pick them up. So I'm a good scientist and I don't. I report them to the archaeologist. Where did you find those spear points? Huh?
Robbie, where'd you find those arrowheads?
So the other thing about spear points, projectile points, arrowheads, spear points is there are experts out in the world that can make them, reproduce them, and make them look very much like their counterpart, ancient counterparts.
I just saw the.
Those are purchased. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say I missed in the chat box, but Robbie had said that he got it from our CPN gift shop. So that makes me wonder if it was a reproduction.
It is, because tribal entities are they follow the law more so than the commercial market. And so, yeah, it's not uncommon to find modern replicas of these projectile points. And like I said, they're very difficult to distinguish from the real artifact.
I have
Very
some.
cool. Thank you for sharing that. And by the way, if you're on your own private land, you can collect them and do what you want with them. So if you have them, don't be fearful of sharing them with me. I'm not going to take them from you. I'm not the fossil police, I promise. Okay, anyone else have cool stuff? Logan, what do you got there? You've got an ammonite, Logan.
I think he might be frozen. Oh, there you go, Logan.
He said that his mic doesn't work.
Oh, I
Okay.
see it.
So that's an ammonite. Did you collect it down along the Red River, down around Texoma? Okay, we'll have to check. There he is. Okay, anyone else while we're waiting on Logan?
I've got something.
Tell us about yours, Connor.
It's a geode. We have them all over our property, and we just pick them up and break them with sledgehammers and then Give them away or sell them.
That's cool. Well, keep an eye out. It's not likely, but you might find a fossil in one of those someday. It's not likely.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's pretty.
Yeah.
Bella, tell us about yours.
So I have a rose rock. I don't know where my parents got it, but I'm pretty sure it's older than I am. It doesn't look like a rose like most of them do. It's more just like liney. It feels almost like sand, but you can't like break it because it's really hard.
Where did you find it?
In the kitchen.
Okay. Do you know where Santa Claus might have found it?
Nope.
Okay.
Marley also has something.
Okay.
I got this fossil on a road trip, I believe, either here in Oklahoma or in Arkansas. I don't really remember. But it's a plant fossil, if you can see it.
Yeah, turn it around a little bit.
That's the
There
most
you go.
visible part, but there's other parts where you can see that it's
Oh, yeah.
a fossil.
That's very pretty. Thank you. Anybody else?
Jack and Riley, what do you got?
We have a rose rock, and then we have little bitty rose rocks too. And then we
So they had
have-
babies?
Yeah, but we have a big one and then some small ones, and then we have
Okay.
like it's called the Oklahoma crystal, and then
Yep.
there's like
Yeah, very cool. So is it calcite or quartzite?
what?
So your crystal, most minerals will form crystals, but they form different shapes and things, and that's in part how we identify them. But you can also do a scratch test later on and see if you can scratch it with your fingernail, and that'll help you differentiate if it's calcite or quartzite. And also you can put a little weak acid on it like vinegar, and if it bubbles, then it's going to have different components in it.
So if it scratches, which one is it?
Calcite, and quartzite's a little bit harder.
This one
Can you-
doesn't scratch at all. It's hard.
Okay, cool. So can you tell me anything about the rose rock?
Oh, we don't know where we got them. It's just our grandma's.
Okay, so the rose rock, do you know it's a state rock?
Oh, really?
It is. It's a state rock. How many? Most rocks are formed by multiple minerals. It only has one mineral, and barite is the mineral that's within a rose rock, and it has iron, and that's partly what gives it its reddish color. There are a couple other rocks that form kind of rose-like rocks, but barite gives that unique crystalline form that forms those petal-like structures. That's what's going on. It's pretty cool. So within Oklahoma, if you look at a map, there's a rock formation that's called the Garber Formation. It's Permian in age. It's like 240 million years old, and it just swings up through the middle part of the state and into southern Kansas. And that's the only place in Oklahoma you'll find that formation, and that formation is the only place you'll find those barite rose rocks. Very cool. Anybody else? Okay, so.
You have something, Scotland?
I have two. I have this crystal, and if I shine light through it, it's purple, but it looks black. And then I have this rock from South Dakota in Rapid City.
Okay. So I can't see it, but feldspars and things like that, they'll form a cool crystal and be kind of dark and maybe a purple. And you'll see flakes of feldspar in granite. So granite's a rock that's made up of many different minerals. Cool. Well, thank you. Anybody else?
Landon?
I found this when I moved here. It was just outside in my yard.
All right. Is it smooth?
No. It's kind of rocky.
Does it look like it's been flaked or chipped away, or is it's got a lot of sharp edges on it. It looks like it's not well rounded, so it's definitely not a river rock. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see. Huh. Well, you can take a picture and send it to someone on this, and they can send it to me, and I'll see if I can look at it. Sorry about that.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. So before we start talking about fossils, and I'm going to share some fossil stuff with you. I want to go over a little bit with you to kind of help you appreciate a rock from what's not a rock, from a fossil and stuff like that. So can everybody see my screen? All right. So does this look familiar? It's a state rock. Yeah, it's a rose rock. They're pretty cool. I used to live in Norman when I went to school at OU, and I would go out and find these rose rocks. Pretty cool. Okay, so it's not a fossil. It's a sedimentary rock. It's a sandstone. So fossils could be nearby, and guess what? That's what I was doing, looking for fossils. What about this? Does this look like a rock? So when you think of wild dinosaur, and you think, well, they got the skull, they got the backbone, all the arms. Well, oftentimes this is all we find right here. And I'm going to see if I can focus in on that for you, because this is a fossil, but it's embedded in rock. There we go. So can you see the little flakes of white? See the little flakes of white within that rock? Those little flakes of white are actual bone. And so this is a fossil that I collected out near Cheyenne, Oklahoma on state property. It's about 8 million years old, and it was probably belonged to an ungulate, a hoofed animal. And I'm not sure which one. There's not enough to determine that. But that's a good example of what we find when we're out prospecting looking. So that's a rock, but it's got a fossil in it. So it's got sedimentary, it's got clay stone. So sediments of clay over long periods of time stack up on top of this dead animal, and it forms a fossil. Okay. Here's another one that's pretty cool. This is another sedimentary rock. It's a clay stone. It's a very, very fine material, and it has fossils within it. See that? And it's actually a metamorphic rock because it underwent a lot of heat and pressure and then fossilized. So that's a sedimentary rock with metamorphism going on. That's pretty cool. That came from up in the panhandle of Oklahoma. It's about 10.5 million years old. And then someone was talking about geodes earlier. You remember talking about geodes? This kind of looks like a typical surface of a geode, doesn't it? Any idea what that is? Okay, you guys ready to learn a scientific? It does, but look at all the stuff going on inside. See all these different morphometric characters. So I'm going to teach you a term today, coprolite. Coprolite. Does anyone know what a coprolite is? It's a fossil, but it's not a fossil of a bone. It's not a fossil of a hair. What else might fossilize? A turd. So this is a large one. This is a fossil dinosaur species or turd. Isn't that cool? Fortunately, after about 140 million years, it doesn't stink. It doesn't taste. It's nice and fossilized. But one thing we can do as scientists is look through this and see, we can't take it apart, but we can use imaging like CT scans and MRIs and image inside and see if we find little bones or little plant matter that might have preserved in this specimen. So if you ever see me in person, I'll bring a little rock and have people pass it around. And one thing that I tell them is you can touch it to your tongue, and if it sticks, it might be a fossil. That's kind of a field test we use. And everybody in the room will do that, and then I'll tell them that was a fossil turd that we just passed around. But it's not going to hurt you. It's so old. Okay, and then I've got this one. Does that look like a rock or anything? All right, someone showed me a plant earlier. Now I'm showing you a plant. This is part of a tree. This is a fossil tree that I collected out in Nevada. You can see the little knot right there where a branch came off. This was about 15 million years old. It's nearby one of my fossil localities out in west central Nevada. Isn't that cool? And by the way, you can collect fossil wood. Depending on where you go on federal and state property, you can collect fossil wood, but with limitations. You can't fill up a dump truck. So make sure you read the rules and regs. But anyways, those are just examples of the things you might come across that they may be a rock, or they may be a fossil. They may be wood or invertebrates. So can you see the screen now? Everybody see the screen? So this is a map of the geology of Oklahoma. All the different colors are going to mean something. All the different colors are going to give you an indication of the time period. So hue, all these yellows, those are quaternary. So if you're interested in finding a mammoth or saber-toothed cat, those are the areas that you want to look at. Okay? Anyone interested in dinosaurs? Raise your hand. Who's interested in dinosaurs? All right. So in Oklahoma, we're really lucky. We have Jurassic age rocks. So Jurassic, you may have heard of Jurassic Park. Jurassic age rocks are famous dinosaur beds out west, but we have a little bit way up here in the corner of Oklahoma, up in the Panhandle. Has anyone heard of Black Mesa? So Black Mesa up here, the Panhandle. Isn't that cool? So we find Jurassic age dinosaurs up there. Does anybody know what the state fossil is? The state fossil is Saurophaganax. Have you heard of Saurophaganax? It's not one of those real pop. All right, Bryden. All right, you've seen or heard of it. It's an Oklahoma original. It's been collected up in the Panhandle, and it just means Lord of the Lizards. Okay, it was a big meat-eating dinosaur. And then way down here in southeastern Oklahoma, this green color, that's Cretaceous age rock. So Cretaceous age rock, we're going to find things like raptors, like Deinonychus, Tyrannosaurs. Are we going to find any T-Rex down there? Anybody familiar with T-Rex? Tyrannosaurus Rex, the tyrant lizard? Oh, come on. Have you ever heard of T-Rex?
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. So does anyone know when T-Rex was around? Was T-Rex ever in Oklahoma? You bet. T-Rex was in Oklahoma, but the Cretaceous age rock, this is all we find of Cretaceous in Oklahoma. That age rock is too old to have preserved T-Rex. So by the time T-Rex came around, that rock record is gone from Oklahoma. That's a story for another time. So up here and down here are our Jurassic and Cretaceous dinosaur beds, respectively. And then the yellows where you'll find some saber-toothed cats and things like that. And here There's some tertiary beds. This is about right in here. Actually, it's right in here. We're working out at Cheyenne and Atoka, or excuse me, Cheyenne and that area to find those fossils earlier, the ungulates. All right, so we've talked a little bit about rocks and minerals. We've talked a little bit about geology in Oklahoma. We've shared some information. And what I'd like to do now is share with you a blank space. But within that blank space, I want to tell you, someone had a fish. Here's my fish. So there's different types of fossils, right? So there's impressions. This is actually, you can see the little vertebra of the fish right in there. So it's still embedded in the rock. But if you flip that other side of the rock over, it's going to leave an impression. Okay, so that's one side. So this fossil, this is a shell I found out in Oklahoma at one of the fossil beds. If I were to pull that shell out, and it would leave an impression, and you might only find that impression, but that's going to give you a lot of information about what was there before. Okay, and there are trackways. Have you guys been to the lake or down to the creek, to the pond, and you see tracks? Well, those trackways can fossilize over time. They can tell us a lot about the animal. Was it running? Was it walking? You can look at the length between the strides. Did it have 4 feet or 2 feet on the ground? So was it bipedal or quadrupedal? A lot of good information. Anyone want to guess what those trackways are, what they were made from? And I'll give you a hint. It was about 15 million years ago in the Mojave, Southern California, another place I work. Nice and cool this time of year, about 120 degrees. Anybody want to guess?
Was it some kind of lizard?
Well, it was a reptile. Very good. So here's my finger. Whoops, there's my finger for a scale. That'd be a pretty big lizard, wouldn't it? What other reptile would be about that size and make those marks? And do lizards have tails? So you might see a tail trailing between if it were a lizard. They're turtle tracks. Isn't that cool? There's another type of fossilization that I was going to share with you, but I couldn't go to the museum and get it. So I'm just going to show you a picture. Right here, fossil. You have a very arid area, and the fossil will be formed through mummification. So a quick drying of the specimen, and then it gets covered up quickly. The cool thing about this is that it may preserve hair and other soft tissues. So you're getting things other than just bones and teeth. You're preserving some soft tissues. In Oklahoma, we don't have permafrost like they do up north and way down south in the Arctic. So they're finding a lot of cool frozen mammoths and things up in Alaska because of the drop in the water levels. So these are other types of fossils that we can study. And here's a nice trackway of one of my students stepping out. This is a bipedal dinosaur from up at Black Mesa. That's pretty cool. So different types of fossils that we find. Okay, so we talked about the Cretaceous of Oklahoma. We talked about the Jurassic. I asked you earlier if there were any T-Rex animals in this part of the world, and there are not, because we don't have the rock record preserved. It's not here. But we have pterosaurs. Here's the little raptor, Deinonychus. Has anyone heard of Deinonychus? Okay. And these are tyrannosaurs. We call them the cows of the Cretaceous. There were lots of them. They were grazers. They fed on plant material. And these raptors, Deinonychus, fed on the tyrannosaurs. Does anyone believe that? Well, there's scientific evidence. In Oklahoma, down by Atoka, Oklahoma, and out in Montana, there are fossils collected of tyrannosaurs in association with Deinonychus. And there are teeth and scratch marks on the bones of tyrannosaur. So we know that the raptors, the Deinonychus, would feed off of and feed on these tyrannosaurs. Isn't that cool? So you learn a lot about the bones, just the bones themselves. Does anyone want to ask me a question about the other picture within the picture right here? Anybody recognize this? How about this bright asteroidal body with a string behind it? Has anyone ever seen a comet? This is a comet. This is a picture of the Neowise comet that I took last night. Show of hands, has anybody heard of the Neowise comet? All right. Has anybody seen the Neowise comet?
No.
All right. Well, this is the Neowise comet. It was discovered in March 27th, 2020. So it's a newly discovered comet. You mean they haven't seen it before? No. Guess when we'll see it again? 6,800 years from now, 6,800 years from now. So it's not a comet that comes around very often. That's the first time we've seen it. If you want to see this comet, you can Google Earth sky or just Google comet. It'll come up. It's a hot topic right now and very, very much worth looking at. Why do I have a picture of a comet when I'm talking about dinosaurs? Does anyone have any idea why dinosaurs went extinct? Any ideas? Why did the dinosaurs? That's one hypothesis. That's correct.
An asteroid came down, hit the Earth, basically took out all the plant and food species, which caused the dinosaurs to starve.
Okay, very good, Bryden. So if it took out all the plant species, did any other herbivores survive? And they did, and that's the puzzle. So we had a mass extinction. We had a lot of animals die that were terrestrial, but we also had a lot of animals that died that were aquatic in the oceans and lakes and rivers. But curiously, not everything was wiped out. In fact, at the demise of the dinosaurs, these little creatures running around, and I'll show you in a minute, called mammals, started to explode once the dinosaurs were gone. So yes, it's thought that an extraterrestrial body or a bolide may have caused or been part of the cause of the demise of dinosaurs and other animals, other organisms at that time. You guys want to see a few real dinosaurs from the Cretaceous of Oklahoma? Anyone interested? All right. So, anybody have any idea what this is?
It's a tooth.
Hey, how did you know that?
I watch a show called Down. Dan, he basically has his own show where he shows fossils and he goes to a museum.
Very cool. So, any idea what this tooth came from? So, from here to here, this is just the root of the tooth. So the only thing sticking out above the gum line is that right there. That's it. See if I can. All right. So can you see the serrations at the edges right along in there? Why would this tooth be serrated like that? Does anyone have any serrated knives at home? So the serrated knives help cut through the flesh of the animals they're eating. So that is a T-Rex tooth from Montana. I said we don't have any in Oklahoma, and we don't. But it's very similar in age to an animal that we did have in Oklahoma. Does anybody know what the state dinosaur is? State dinosaur, Acrocanthosaurus. So Acrocanthosaurus is the state dinosaur. It was a high spine dinosaur and very, 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 very ferocious like T-Rex. If they fought, which one would win? Any idea? It's a trick question because they never coexisted. You gotta watch these professors. They'll ask questions that are tricky. How about this animal? This is a skull of a baby tyrannosaur from Matoka, Oklahoma. Okay. So this is the roof of the mouth, the palate of that dinosaur. And you can see the teeth on the side. That's a baby tyrannosaur. Okay. And then one thing that I want you to try to identify is that. Does anybody know what that is?
That is a raptor talon.
Who said? Oh, okay. Does anyone agree? Anyone agree? That is a raptor talon. In fact, that's very good. In fact, that is Deinonychus from Matoka, Oklahoma. Isn't that cool? We have dinosaurs right here in the state. So that's Deinonychus, and then the Tyrannosaur. So that's the Cretaceous of Oklahoma. Some of you guys may be more interested in the Jurassic of Oklahoma, and that's up near Kenton, and that's where our state fossil comes from. Remember, Saurophaganax, the Lord of the Lizards? Has anybody ever been to Black Mesa? Okay. Well, I have a fossil from there, but I'm going to have you identify for me, okay? So this is a dinosaur fossil. I want you to tell me which dinosaur it's from. Is everybody ready? You got your game face on? Got your A game on? All right, we're going to find out. Ta-da! Well, that's a trick. No, it's not. This is what paleontologists have to deal with all the time. Bits and pieces. We're not always lucky and find the whole thing. It's very rare. So this is a real piece of fossil bone from Kenton, Oklahoma. It was collected in the late 30s by a guy named Stovall. Professor Stovall collected this and other fossils back in the 30s. It's about 155 million years old. And I want you to tell me what animal it came from. Any guesses? Can anybody help me out? No one wants to help me out. I'm on my own. Come on, we'll get published.
I think it was a herbivore.
Okay, very good. He thinks it's a herbivore. Anyone agree? Okay, so if it's a herbivore, what part of the body did that come from? Can you help me out there, Blaine, or anyone else? Is it part of the skull?
It probably came from the leg.
Okay, it came from a leg. So no one likes my skull hypothesis. How about the leg? Anyone agree with the leg or forearm or something like that? You're exactly right. It came from one of the long bones because of its size and shape. It's a long bone. It's not a rib. It's not flat. Here's part of a rib. It's flat. So we use what we call the comparative method. Very good. So unfortunately, that's the only animal I have that I can share with you from there that's a dinosaur. We've also found turtles and crocodiles and some other cool things, and we may find a mammal someday. If we do, that would be really interesting. So this is one of the big apatosaurs from up there, but there's a lot of meat eaters like Saurophaganax that I talked about that you'll see up there as well. All right, so that's Jurassic of Oklahoma. And by the way, when the museum in Norman reopens, you can go visit and see the exhibits. And by the way, I'm a research associate, so you may run into me while you're down there looking around. All right, so that's Oklahoma and Oklahoma Ice Age or Pleistocene. Anybody familiar with the Pleistocene of Oklahoma? The Ice Age. Well, this is what we think it might have looked like. You had mammoths, you had ducks, things that we see, all different kinds of bisons. We had a little glyptodon that would be present as, and we're probably getting close to running out of time. So I want to share with you just one of my favorite fossils before we go.
Oops, can you unmute yourself, Kent? I think I accidentally mute you. I'm sorry.
There we go. And I'm trying to find the other screen. There we go. All right, can everybody see the screen? And I'll be quick. This is a dire wolf collected from down near Marlow, Oklahoma. It's from the Ice Age. It's a very old animal. Come see me, I'll tell you more about it. And I'm going to wrap up with one of my favorite programs that I want to share with you today. If you like fossils, you like science, you like medicine, and that kind of thing, then I'd invite you to look into a program that I run called Native Explorers. It's for Indians only. So we take college students from across the U.S. out on about a 10-day dig in Oklahoma, Arizona, New Mexico, California. We've been all over west of the Mississippi. So you can learn more about that through certain resources, and you'll probably see a website that's shared with you. Does anybody have any questions before we close out? I'll let the moderator wrap it up.
Oh, what age group is Native Explorers for?
It is for 18 years of age and older. They have to have a high school diploma or equivalent. They have to be enrolled in a federally recognized tribe. That's it. And so we have people that have just finished high school, people that are about to finish graduate school, everything in between. And I take along with me people like student Dr. Mariah West, who you met, so you learn about more from them about their pathway into medicine, and you get a network. It's pretty cool. We have about 12 of my past Native Explorer participants in OSU medicine. And I said medicine because some of them went to veterinary school, and that's okay. Well, it was great to see everybody. I enjoyed spending a couple afternoons with you, and I hope to see you again on one of these adventures, or maybe Native Explorers in person.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Yeah, give him a thank you. Give him a wave. I'm going to give a quick presentation today just about how to pay for college. You've heard from all these people who talked about their education and what they did for college, but I want to talk to you just a little bit about how you can pay for it. So I am going to share my screen. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, like I said, how to pay for college. And we're going to start with a little poll here. So let me stop my share. And at the bottom, oh man. Well, I had a poll ready, but I think it got messed up because there's several of us sharing the same license here. So I'll ask you it. Let me share my screen again and I'll just ask you and you guys can weigh in that way. How much will college cost you? If you think that college will cost you $0, raise your hand. If you think college will cost you less than $10,000 a year, raise your hand. Okay, I see Michaela. Blaine, I think 2. What about 10,000 to 30,000 per year? Scotland, Tijania, Nokos, Landon. Okay, I see several. All right. What about 30,000? Marley too. What about 30,000 plus? Okay. Bryden, I see you. Okay. So this is actually a trick question, and Dr. Smith had one of those for you earlier today too, because the answer is college could cost you any one of these amounts. It just depends on a whole bunch of factors. So we talked earlier in the week about how to find that right college for you. Well, depending on what college you go to, the cost is going to change. So if you were going to go to what we call a community college or a junior college, which is where you would get that 2-year associate degree, that could cost you a lot less than a university like the University of Oklahoma or Oklahoma State University. Going out of state, like I went to University of Notre Dame and Stanford University for college. Well, those both cost over $30,000 a year. But I did not pay $30,000 a year because I had scholarships. So it kind of matters what school you depend on going to, whether it's public or private, and how much scholarship funding you can get. So today we're going to talk about scholarships, because the ideal and what I hope for each of you is that you can be as close to possible as 0. So let's see here. All right. So I'm going to show you a graphic I borrowed from our friends at the Regents that I think is really neat. So you can see here on this ice cream cone, this is how we hope that your how you pay for college is broken up. So you can see here that the bottom, the cone, what makes up most of this ice cream cone is what we call gift aid. That means scholarships. So we hope that most of what you use to pay for college is scholarships. And that basically is money you don't have to pay back. It's money they give you to go to school and you do not have to pay it back. But usually you earn that by doing well in school, by maybe writing an essay, maybe by doing well at sports. Somehow you have earned that money, and that's your gift aid. And we hope that makes up most of it. Then here you have earned money. And when we say earned money, that could be that while you're going to school, you're working. So you're making some money that you can pay for school that way. There's something called a work study where your school can say you actually can work at the university and pay off some of your school. So that would be your earned money. And you see that makes up a little bit, but not as much as we want that cone to be, that gift aid. And then you can see that second scoop, that's saved money. So that's kind of probably that'll be with your family. So maybe if your family has a savings account that they started for you right now, where they're putting back money for college, or maybe you're putting back money for college if you've been working, that saved money should make up some, but we hope it's not the bulk. And then at the very top, that syrup or whatever at the very top, that cherry sauce, strawberry sauce, that's your student loans. So you can use student loans to pay for college, but I really hope that it's just a tiny bit to make up whatever the rest of those things didn't cover, because student loans can follow you for a really long time. They can make it hard for you to be able to afford to buy a house or a car. They can really, some people pay on their student loans for 30, 40 years. So your ideal is to really work hard for those scholarships, to maybe plan on earning some money while you're in school, and then to save some money. And student loans are kind of that last resort. So I'm going to talk to you about a few different ways that you could have some of that gift aid, some of those scholarship or grant funding. So has anybody heard of FAFSA? If you have, what is it? Okay. So FAFSA stands for Federal Application for Free Student Aid, but you don't have to memorize that. But basically what it is, it's grant funding that you do not have to pay back, and it's based on your income level. So depending on how much money your family makes, you may qualify for some grant aid by filling out that FAFSA. And most schools are going to require you to fill it out because that's how they figure out if they're going to give you financial aid, how much money they're going to give you. And also a lot of other scholarship programs make you fill it out. So even if you think your family makes too much, it's still one of those things you should fill out because you never know and because other programs might require it. So if any of you are planning on attending college next year, you can apply starting this October 1st at studentaid.gov. So I know we have some older kiddos on here and older students on here, and if you are, then that's where you kind of start that process. And if you need help with any of this, maybe someone else from our department who's on the call can put our info in the chat box, because you can always reach out to us and we'd be happy to work through that FAFSA application with you. All right, Oklahoma's Promise. Anybody ever heard of that one? All right, Marley, I see you. Anyone else? All right, I see Fabian. Is that Fabian? Or Julian or Damien? One of you. All right. What's Oklahoma's Promise? Marley, do you know what it is? Nope, you know you signed up for it, which is good. Okay, so Oklahoma's Promise is this really neat program that we have here in Oklahoma, which means that if you sign up in your 8th, 9th, or 10th grade year, and your family earns less than $55,000 a year, you could get a college tuition scholarship. So what that means is if you go to public colleges and universities, it could pay all of your tuition, or if you went to a private college and a university, you could pay part of your tuition. So that's a pretty good deal. So say, for example, let's see, on Tuesday, Dr. Volberding was talking about how she went to East Central University in Ada. Well, that's a public college, a public university here in Oklahoma. If she had Oklahoma's Promise, she could get her entire tuition at ECU paid for, which is a pretty big deal. So that gets us a lot closer to that zero number that we're trying to hit. So if you are, how many of you are going in this next year going to be in the 8th, 9th, or 10th grade? All right, I see some hands. Okay, so if you haven't signed up for Oklahoma's Promise yet, and you're going to be in 8th, 9th, or 10th next year, then you need to sign up. Even if, here's my caveat, here's my point here, even if you think your family makes more than $55,000 a year, still sign up. Why? Because something could happen. Maybe, we hope not, but maybe, a crazy pandemic sweeps the country and people start losing their jobs, something unexpected like that. Well, then your family income might change. So if right now you make more than $55,000, but when you are ready for college, you make less than that, you have to have signed up your 8th, 9th, or 10th grade year, and then you're ready for it if your circumstances change. The other thing about Oklahoma's Promise is you've got to take certain classes. So signing up in the 8th, 9th, or 10th grade will let you know, okay, well, I got to take 2 foreign language credits, or I have to take this many maths or this many sciences. Most of it are things you would have taken anyway, but it's worth it because that could, like I said, that could pay for your entire college if you stayed here within the Oklahoma and you went to a public university. So that's a pretty big deal. So if any of you want to talk more about how to fill out Oklahoma's Promise, our department would be happy to help you. You can reach out to us, your parents can reach out to us, and we'll walk through that application with you. All right, another source of scholarships are your tribes. Did you all know that you could get scholarships from your tribes? Good, all right, I saw you nodding, Marley in Scotland. That is great. For those of you who are CPN on here, do you know how much your tribe gives you each semester if you get a tribal scholarship? Do you know, Bryden? Nope. So for CPN tribal members, you can get a tribal scholarship for $2,000 a semester. For all the way when you start, even if you took it some classes in college classes in high school, all the way through getting your master's degree. You get $2,000 each semester, which adds up a lot. Other tribes can give even more than that. Do you know how much your tribe gives, Scotland?
I'll get $500 a month for every month I'm in college.
$500 a month. That's awesome. So that would be $6,000 a year that she could get from just going to college from her tribe. So on here, I kind of pulled the list of the people that I knew the tribes that I knew were going to be on here that people signed up with. So if you're CPN, there's a scholarship. Chickasaw, Muskogee Creek, Sac and Fox, Cherokee, Seminole, Kaw, and those are just a few. But whatever your tribe is, it is almost guaranteed that they're going to have some kind of scholarship funding for you. Differs a little bit by tribe, so you kind of have to do a little Googling. If you just Google your tribe's name and scholarship, that should take you to the right place. Or again, and I know I sound like a broken record, you can reach out to us and we'll help you find it. But that's, if you qualify for that and you're not taking advantage of it, then you're leaving money on the table. So if Scotland doesn't apply, she's basically losing out on $500 a month, which is crazy, right? Who would do that if they knew they could? One thing I want to point out, because Matt mentioned it the other day, but is anybody on here Muskogee Creek? Let's see. Landon, all right. So Landon, you, and if I missed anybody else, I'm having to kind of scroll back between the videos, but if you're Muskogee Creek, there is a college called the College of the Muskogee Nation, and it's a 2-year college, so you can get your associate's degree if you remember. At the College of the Muskogee Nation, it is free, both tuition and room and board for Muskogee Creek citizens. So if you go there, and even if you wanted to get your 4-year degree and you can go for 2 years, get your associates, and then transfer somewhere else, you could start out paying nothing if you went out to the College of the Muskogee Nation. And I've been to visit, and it's a really neat campus. It's beautiful. They have a really great facility. So that's pretty awesome if you're Creek. You already know you're going to pay a lot less. If you're any other tribe, which I know several of you all on here are, they have a discount for tribal citizens. So you basically get to pay less already if you go to College of Muskogee Nation. So even if you're not Muskogee Creek, you still might look at it because it still might be cheaper than some of your other options, and then you can get your degree and transfer somewhere else. All right. Another thing that you can maybe think about, keep on the back burner, is called ASIS. It is the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. And basically what that is it's an organization of STEM, or people who are interested in science, technology, engineering, and math students. It is STEM so STEM students in K-12, it's STEM students in college, it's STEM professionals, and then it's also even just people who care about STEM at tribes. They've all formed this group called ASIS, and if you join, you get to have access to all kinds of cool things. So if you're in high school, one thing that you can do that's really cool is you can participate in the ASIS Science Fair. So that's usually at the OSU campus. Sometimes they do it virtually. They probably will this year do it virtually unless they're able to gather. But it's a really neat way to be ready for college. So you get to kind of, like we talked about the other day, you're trying to figure out how to be a good college candidate. You got to participate in things, which you guys are already doing because you're here today. But participating in the ASIS Science Fair is one way to kind of add to your list of accomplishments. Could help you get into college. And then also, if you participate in ASIS, you get access to a whole bunch of STEM scholarships. You have to be a member, and when you're younger, that membership is free, but that could give you specific scholarships. So if you were to go to AISES.org, AISES.org, you could see more about that. And if you, especially for you high schoolers, if you wanted to participate in an ASIS organization right now, the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, we actually have a tribal chapter. So you could participate in our ASIS organization as a high school student, and that way you'd be ready to apply for scholarships when you get into college. Another one, yesterday we heard student Dr. West and Dr. Kent Smith talk about the Indian Health Service, or talk about indigenous medicine. Well, one thing that you could do if you wanted to be a doctor, and I know Bo was on the call yesterday and mentioned he thought about it, Well, there's something called the Indian Health Service or IHS scholarship. What does that mean? Well, it's a pretty cool opportunity that if you get it, and depending on what type of medical career you're looking at, you could get your college paid for, and you could get your medical school paid for. And that usually is several years. So they give you a scholarship that pays for everything. And just like Scotland was talking about, they actually give you a monthly stipend to help pay for everything else that's going on in your life. So if you have to pay for food and housing, all of that, you actually get money on top of them paying for your scholarship. And in return, you have to give them, for each year they paid for a scholarship, you commit to working for their tribe, for a tribal clinic or an IHS facility for 1 year. So if you got 3 years of a scholarship from IHS, you'd work 3 years at a tribal clinic, which I like to look at it not as you have to do it, but basically you have a guaranteed job once you graduate. So you don't even have to find a job. They place you somewhere and you can pay for it, and get paid for it. So that's if you're planning on being a doctor, if you're planning on being a nurse, if you're planning on being a physical therapist, maybe even a counselor or a social worker. There are all kinds of pathways that the Indian Health Service or IHS scholarship can help you pay for. So if that's something you want to talk about, we'd be happy to work with you on that. That one is a competitive one. It's not guaranteed, but you do have a representative in your region who can help look over it, and you have some folks at the CPN Department of Education that would be happy to work with you on that too. So what can you do now to prepare? Well, here are some things that I would say. Doesn't matter, it's going to be a little bit different depending on what age you are, but one thing you can do now if you're looking to think about college or to be a good candidate for scholarships, you can connect with your school guidance counselor or your Indian education advisor, coordinator, director, or your tribal education department. So they'll have resources. So if you haven't talked to your counselor already or your Indian ed counselor, go talk to them and say, hey, I'm thinking about college. How can you help? And they probably have some resources. Another thing is you want to maintain your GPA. What does GPA stand for?
Grade average.
Grade point average. Thank you. Your grade point average. So what does that mean? It means you got to make good grades. So if you haven't been making good grades up to this point, that's okay. This next year is a new year, but the better grades that you make, the more options you're going to have for college. We can find a college, you can find a college for you no matter what your grade point average is, but you're going to have more options the better your grades are. So if you're making all A's, you're going to have a lot more options than if you're making all C's. Your extracurriculars, what does that mean? Basically, it means anything you do outside of school. That some people just think about that as if you participate in clubs, like maybe your local 4-H club. Well, that is an extracurricular, but so is maybe a job that you have after school. So is babysitting. So are church activities. So are tribal activities. If you maybe go to stomp dances or powwows and you dance or you participate. Those are all extracurricular. So the more things that you can do outside of school that show that you're a well-rounded individual, that you care about and you're passionate and you do stuff, that's going to make you a better candidate for college and more likely to get a scholarship. You can take tough classes that you enjoy. So does that mean that you take all the hardest classes and you fail them all? I hope not. But it means that if you really care about science and for example, you're interested in maybe doing sports medicine. Well, the other day, Dr. Volberding said that anatomy was really important, right? Well, if your high school offers anatomy, then that's a really important class that you might want to take because one, it lets you know if you really like it, because maybe you like the sound of it, but then you take it and it's hard and you don't like it, and that's okay. At least you know that before you pay to go to school for it. Or maybe you take it and you really like it and you learn a lot more, and then that's going to help you later on whenever you pursue being, an athletic trainer or whatever. So whatever you're interested in, then you can try to take classes that connect to that. So if you all were really excited by today's session and talking about archaeology, well, then you want to think about what is your school, your high school, your middle school, if they have anything, do they offer anything that has to do with archaeology? Maybe they offer sociology. My high school, Bethel, they offered sociology. Well, that'd be kind of similar. Anthropology, if you have something like that, those are some classes that you could take. Native American Studies, a lot of schools offer that. That could be similar too. Something else you can do is try to get to know your teachers. I know that maybe seems kind of crazy or maybe seems hard, but eventually when you're getting to graduate high school, you're gonna have to ask them for recommendation letters. If you've never talked to any of your teachers and they don't know who you are, then that's gonna be pretty hard because they're not gonna know what to say about you. So that means, you know, if you're not super shy, you can participate in class and raise your hand. That can be hard. That was hard for me as a student. So what I preferred is I would go and stay after class or go on a free period and I would talk to my teachers then. That was easier for me than, you know, piping up in class. And that's the same. It doesn't really matter how you get to know them, but whatever you can do to get to know them, and especially if you can do well in their class, then they're going to have better things to say about you in a recommendation letter. And that's going to be important when you're applying to college and also when you are applying for scholarships. All right, and these last two, these are kind of more for the high school students that are here on the call, but all of you probably either have taken or have been dreading to take the ACT test or the SAT, but probably the ACT. How many of you have taken the ACT already? All right. Yep, I see a few, and maybe you're gonna be taking it again, I don't know. But one thing is, I would say, is you need to prepare for those standardized tests. You're gonna take the ACT, the school pays for it usually, and if not, then you can get it paid, you know, an additional test paid for through your Johnson O'Malley, your JOM funding. But if you don't study in between your ACT tests, what's gonna happen? If you don't change anything, then nothing's gonna change. So just kind of like, I hope you wouldn't walk into a classroom and take a math test if you've never even practiced that math problem. I hope it's the same way for you with your ACT, because if you walk in there and you've never picked up an ACT prep book or never looked at what's going to be on it, well, you're going to have a lot harder time than even if you spend a little bit of time prepping before. So that's something that our department can also help with. We have some books that you could check out if you wanted to look through some books, or we can recommend even some free online resources where you could prep and practice for that ACT to hopefully boost that score. And the reason that's important is typically the higher your ACT score, again, more options you're going to have for college, and the more likely you are to get scholarships. So if it's, you know, say maybe you spend 20 hours over a few months studying for the ACT, but it saves you $20,000 because you get a scholarship, then I think that's probably worth that time that you invested. That's a pretty good return on investment. And then the last thing is, if you're in high school, you can start work on your essays. For your scholarships and for your college applications, you're going to have to write essays. That's something that your counselor or, you know, your Indian Ed counselor or your tribal education department can help you with. But once you really have that good base essay, the nice thing about it is you just have to kind of change it up a little bit. You don't typically have to write a new essay for every single thing that you apply for. As long as you've got a good one, you can kind of just change it up. So I put on the screen our contact information because I said about 100 times. If you wanted to learn more about any of these things or you wanted help with any of these things, we would be happy to help you. So you can email us at college@potawatomi.org, or you can give us a call, 405-695-6028. In normal times when we're not talking at you from a computer, you could come see us in our office, or we could even schedule a one-on-one Zoom call. But we can even talk to you face-to-face if you prefer that. But it doesn't matter what age you are. If you're ready to start talking about college, we would love to help you figure out what's going to be next for you and how you can be preparing right now. So I'm going to take a breath because that was a lot of talking, and take a drink and see if you have any questions. All right. Out of curiosity, real quick before we wrap up, has anybody been interested in any of the careers we talked about this week? Anybody think they might want to go into athletic training or sports medicine, or being a doctor, or being an archaeologist?
I would want to be a doctor.
Ooh, a doctor, Mihaela. What kind of doctor, do you know?
Like a surgeon.
Ah, I love that. So then you would be a great candidate for that IHS scholarship. Love that. Very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, that's all I have for today. So tomorrow we are going to welcome someone I think you're really going to like. Her name is Lexi Freeman, and she is going to talk about bugs. So your assignment for tonight is to try to find a picture of a bug. If you can find a real bug and take a picture safely, or you can find one online, but we're going to talk about that tomorrow, and she's going to talk about how to identify a bug, and that's what that butterfly in your kit is for. And then, as always, just turn in that takeaway sheet to me, or have your parents turn in that takeaway sheet to me, and we'll be doing the giveaway drawings next week. So, miigwech, Bamapi. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, Tasha.
Bye, Bryden.
Bye.
Bye, Blaine. Candy, I saw your message. The prizes are going to be here for tomorrow. I told them on the sheet that they had until Monday to turn them in, just in case they all wanted to do them afterward. But so we'll probably wait till maybe Tuesday to do our drawing.
Okay, I was just letting you know that Lexi brought them by. She brought 20 of the like make your own crystal-like type thing, and then 2 boxes of something else.
Oh, nice. So we'll really, I mean, a lot of them will win, I hope. That's good.
Yep,
That's
so
awesome.
they're just right here by my office.
Sweet. Yeah, we'll do a drawing probably next week. But I've been really loving the takeaways. I know Kim sent me some, and then I've had several, but they're really good.
Good.
Well, thank you, Dr. Smith.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I'll close off. So if you need to wrap up with your crew, but I just want to say thanks, enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you in person someday.
Absolutely. We appreciate you. And if you have time tomorrow, you can hop on, join us and see Lexi's presentation. But if not, we'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks. Unfortunately, I'm meeting with anatomists to try to gear up for the following week.
Yep.
Class starts the 3rd of August, so we got next week to get ready.
Oh, goodness. Well, all right. Well, good luck. We'll see you soon.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I think we're good, yeah?
Yep, we're good. Did I kick you off earlier, Kim? Who did I kick off earlier?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. For some reason, it was like when I got on early to test out the technology with Kent, and then some people were getting on, and maybe like 10 minutes before the class starts, it kicked me off, which meant somebody else tried to start a session. And so I couldn't tell who it was. It said test, so I don't know. You said, well, maybe I did by accident, something, a while back. I'm not sure. But I just ended it and restarted our session. So I was like, well, I don't know who I kicked off, but I kicked off something.
No biggie at all. Today was really fun with all the rocks.
I know. I was kind of worried. I was kind of worried they wouldn't bring it because could be, I was afraid they'd be like, well, I don't know where to find a fossil, but I loved that.
Yesterday was a little bit, I almost fell asleep. I don't mean that badly. Today they were way more into it. I was afraid some of them weren't even log in today because they thought, oh, yesterday was.
Well, that's what I thought. Because of course, maybe it just is my preference because I thought, yeah, yesterday was hard for me too. But then, like a couple of them on their takeaways, at least Robbie, Robert's son, Robbie Collins, he wrote on there that yesterday was his favorite session. So I'm like,
okay. So
I know. I'm like, well,
I had to get up and get something to drink because I was about to fall asleep. God, it wasn't on video. So.
Well, and which I talked to him afterward, but yes, I was actually going to give the presentation I did yesterday, which is fine. We just shifted it. But he was, by the time that it got to 2:00 and that's when they actually were starting to participate. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to cut them off because they're finally participating now. So.
Right.
But yeah,
it's still good.
I told them today, I was like, well, today I'm going to cut you off at 2 because I want to present a little bit about scholarships. So
anyway. I think it's gone really well, I think.
I think so too. And like, I mean, I learned there's a few things, I've learned along the way that I'm like, oh, this would have been good to do this or whatever, which that's to be expected. But overall, I'm really excited that we're having as many log in each day. I was afraid to lose kiddos, but we're not really losing them for the most part.
Right.
Like, they're coming on. They're mostly participating here and there. The takeaways, I'm loving reading those. So, yeah.
Yeah. And my kids have come every day for cooking in the mornings. So my office is benefiting from that. Everyone gets to eat the food that we make.
That's awesome. Jeanette's been sending me pictures of Bryden and Micah's, and they look delicious. And then when I got on earlier, the Miller family, they liked their Mexican pizza so much that they made another batch of them, and that's what they were eating when they logged on this afternoon.
Perfect.
Yes, I have tuned in I missed yesterday's, and I wasn't able to stay for all of today's, but I've tuned in for at least a little bit of most of the cooking demos, and Maggie's killing it. She's doing a great job.
Yeah,
she's very good.
It's fun. So, okay. Well, I'll talk to you soon.
Yep. See you tomorrow if you can make it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.